The impact the original Friday the 13th from 1980 had on horror, especially in the 80s, is undeniable. But why was a low-budget ripoff of Halloween so transcendent for the genre? Well, I think one of the hidden reasons is the simplicity of the movie. The movie at its core is a very simple formula. It's a summer camp threatened by a serial killer with a shocking reveal at the end. One of director Sean S. Cunningham's main goals was to flip this apple pie, Pepsi drinking generation on its head by showing these clean-cut, all-American kids get slaughtered one by one. Let's also talk about the simplicity of the killer's motive. In the early stages of the movie, we see that several murders happened on the grounds of the camp in the late 1950s. Since then, what they now call Camp Blood has been plagued by an unsettling string of bad luck that at first might seem coincidental, but over the years, the residents around the area have come to terms that the camp is just cursed. A story about a curse is nothing new to the genre, even in 1980. However, the reality of the circumstances are actually centered around one of the most primal and basic human instincts, the basic instinct of a mama bear avenging one of her cubs. A motive really any mom watching the movie can relate to. You could also say Mrs. Voorhees' motive had even more layers to it. You could argue she didn't want what happened to her son Jason to happen to another mom, so she saw it as her duty to keep this camp closed forever. I mean, even just listen to a part of the score in the movie, which has become so famous but is also so simple. The k was created by just echoing the ki and mo sounds from Mrs. Voorhees when she says "killer mommy" towards the end of the movie.
Killer mommy, killer.
I think the era this movie came out was also crucial to its success, because keep in mind, this was way before the internet or cable TV. So people were always kind of looking for something tantalizing, which is something humans have always been doing as far back as we've ever existed. And with Friday the 13th, 1980, you could see the movie and experience sex and blood and also just have the shit scared out of you. The simplicity of the characters, you could also say, ended up being a big feather in this movie's cap. Because the production didn't have a lot of time or money, they had to find actors that were likable and also cheap, but also characters without a lot of backstory because they just didn't have the time to write them. So instead of overly complicating who the characters were in the movie, the production just took inspiration from the real world and incorporated cops and normal, clean-cut kids you'd find at a summer camp in the late 70s and early 80s. Even just look at the final girl in the movie, Alice. They tried to keep her backstory and just her all-around character not overly complicated or confusing. And the last point I want to make is about the whodunit aspect of the movie. The movie takes the simplistic approach to this by giving you tiny little rewards about the mystery of the killer, but just enough to keep you engaged throughout the movie until the very end. But then they nail two key points at the end of the movie when the audience thinks it can finally exhale. First is when a friendly and unintimidating mom shows up to help, and the last moment is that calming and peaceful music when Alice is in the boat at the end. Both such simple ideas to use against the audience right before you shock the shit out of them. Now I know the original Friday the 13th for a lot of people is nowhere near their favorite movie in the franchise. Personally, I love it. I think it's the scariest movie in the entire franchise, and I think it's an all-time classic. But I think you should ask yourself, instead of holding the simplicity of the movie against it, should we actually credit the simplicity for establishing one of the greatest horror franchises ever?